Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment, and thank you so much for coming, all of our listeners. And you know, my habit here is to welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive, their time. 24 hours has been offered to every mankind on this planet. How you utilize that will tell me much about you. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator. It has created the individual that is before us. And we want to honor Mina for coming and spending these quality and expensive commodities here with us. Mina, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Ben, thank you so much. I truly appreciate being here. Thank you.
It is an honor to have you. One of the things that we do here is offer you an opportunity to tell the folks what you do and how you do that. And we do that by giving you a question, if you will. And that question that I always ask everyone is this: how do you serve mankind?
Great question. So I want to believe that I am serving mankind through my gift of empowering others to heal from anything, from trauma, from hurt, from dissatisfaction, from, looking at themselves in a better way, looking at life in a more brighter way, I guess you could say. And I think that of coming through a lot of depression and childhood trauma, I guess you could say, and really shaped me. And I was really fascinated with the human psyche. And I went and studied psychology in college because I wanted to understand myself. I wanted to understand where the depression comes from. Where does all this come from? And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And, finding out that through that journey, I was being called, I did not know at that time. I graduated with my degree into psychology and criminal justice. And I was actually going to go down the path of government, forensic psychology and law. Something told me that's not where I'm supposed to be. And I was working in the mortgage industry at that time, paying my way through college. And I stayed in the mortgage industry because the money was really good. It wasn't my passion, but I stayed in there. But it slowly started eating away at my soul. 10 years later, I lost my job due to the biggest mortgage crash that ever happened. And then we went into the recession. And during that time, I was even more depressed and unfulfilled, unsatisfied, frustrated that my life was not the way I was hoping it to be, and trying to figure out what other career path is for me. And I was looking at a few different options, and entrepreneurship was one of them. And I wasn't able to figure it out. A friend of mine invited me to a seminar, and that woman that was leading the seminar happened to be a life coach. And I didn't know at that time what a life coach was. She offered a complimentary session to the audience, and I decided to sign up for it. And when I did, I knew that it would be helpful for me to get myself out of my stuckness of where I was. I was a newlywed, and my husband at that time was feeling the burden of having to provide for both of us. We had a big mortgage, and I couldn't even find a job at, getting hired at Starbucks even. It was just a really terrible time in the economy. Everybody was flooding the job force and the workforce. And so I thought, why don't I just hire this woman to see what she can do for me? And it turned out to be the best decision ever, because from that point, I was able to clear away so many things that were holding me back, such as fears. And one by one, she supported me to look at the different career paths and really looking at them from a perspective of, are these going to be fulfilling for me? Are they going to be really satisfying? Can I see myself 10 years from now really being happy doing this? And I found that none of them were a good fit. So she asked me, well, what about life coaching? And she knew me by that time. We were already like 3-4 months in. And she saw something in me that I was capable of becoming a life coach and helping other people, because that's in my nature. And, she saw that this would be something that I could truly enjoy. And also I can, be of service, helping others and setting my own hours and time and being a solo entrepreneur. And
Yeah.
so I thought about it and I gave it a really good thought. And I really thought, yeah, I could see myself doing this and I would really enjoy it. Now, of course, I didn't know at this time that all this while, throughout my whole life experiences, that I was led to this place where I struggled and I was having a hard time going from job to job, being unsatisfied, and all of those times where I didn't know what my purpose was in life, to the point where I was so sure that this is where I'm supposed to be. And I've been here since then, and it's been 17 years now.
Wow.
And so I really am truly feeling blessed that I've found my purpose, and that's what I'm called to do here on this planet.
Yeah, I tell people, Mina, that most of us, the programmers tell us that we ought to find a job, but as the type of being that we are, a subconscious being, as I said, psychologists would say, and the soul, money doesn't make the soul happy at all. That soul didn't come here to work and then die. That soul came with an assignment, and it is a comment on us to locate that. And in partnership with the designers, if you will, I believe that there is God that has called us to do specific assignment. And once we have located it, it is the place by which we are energized. We are able to work in that space 24 hours a day and not get tired. In fact, it kind of rejuvenate us when we are doing it with the balance, all of the tools in place, meaning the boundaries and all the different pieces. Once we put it all together, it is a place of strength and honor. One of the places that we visit in this podcast of ours is going back, I call it the beginnings of our beginnings, if you will. This is where we spend time in this unit that is called the family. In the family, and as you go through your journey, I would say 90% of our problem begins right there. And so at this space called the family, we are going to learn a couple of things. We're going to learn the communication skills. We're going to learn behavior. We're going to learn our belief system begins to develop here. All of these different things, those fears that you talk about, many of them enter around here. The trauma entered around this particular time as well. And it begins to allow us to form perspective that will guide our life. What was your family unit like?
So my family unit was, how should I describe this? It was tumultuous. It was unpredictable. There was physical and verbal abuse. There was a lot of unhappiness. There was a lot of anger. My parents were an arranged marriage. My mother did not want to marry my father, but she had no choice. Growing up in Iran, I'm originally from Iran. That's the culture. So she married into, a marriage with a man that she didn't want to be with. And so that really set the stage, unfortunately. Me and my siblings, I have 3 siblings. It was a struggle to be happy. So in that environment, it was interesting because, even from early on as a child, I knew there was something wrong. I knew that this wasn't right. And this wasn't how life should be. But of course that shaped me. They say in the first 7 years of a person's life, you basically model and you absorb like a sponge, whatever your environment is. And so I adopted a lot of those behaviors from my parents and my siblings, which, carried into my adulthood.
Yeah.
And I struggled in my 20s and, trying to make it in life with friends and relationships and how I interact with people. I struggled with a lot of conflict, a lot of, um, hurtful behaviors on both ends. Like I know that I contributed to a lot of it. And now looking back, I realize that because of the way I showed up in life, the outcomes, of course, the outcomes wouldn't be great,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well,
There's
that's how
this
we were
thing.
programmed, though.
Yeah.
Our models, if you will, is mom and dad, and we have some other models out the side of our family at the time, but there's still family. You have your grandparents, you have your aunts, and outside you have a few other people. But your core model, is within that unit that is called a family. And if there is high level of dysfunction, you are going to learn and mimic
Hmm.
much of those things, and they are the tools by which we began to live our life from. We adapt them. And you talked about earlier, some manifest in fearfulness. These
Hmm.
are all programmers that we don't talk about. We don't look at them, Mina, as programmers. Depression, anxiety. These things are living with us, and they are programming you and I day and night versus, we have the outside ones, society and education system, all that stuff. But those dark emotions are with us all day long, 24 hours a day, riding our minds and programming us. So here's this girl. She's in this cauldron of high intensity energy being tossed back and forth from this family. And she becomes inquisitive about the human behavior. And you pick psychology. When you got there and you began to study psychology, what did it do to you?
It helped bring some understanding that what I experienced in my life and in my childhood is more common than we think.
Hmm.
And it really helped me to just realize that, I wasn't crazy. There was definitely some weight that held to the dysfunction and human behaviors. So from there, it was just an eye opening for me to be able to
Hmm.
do that. Now, if we're talking about programming and we're talking about this being in us 24/7, I don't know how deep you'd like to go on this conversation,
As
but
deep as you would like it to go.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So the way I look at it is, there's, of course, the dark and the light. We know
Hmm.
that. The dark and the
Yeah.
light, the yin and yang
Hmm.
exists. Let's be honest. There's always going to be that darkness existing around us. And it will be up to us. The way I see it is, it will be up to us on whether or not we allow that to be the driving force for
Hmm.
our actions and our beliefs and our
Yeah.
thoughts. And I know that nobody is immune to this. And there are some people on this planet that are truly in that space of light, like we're talking about, Buddha, and we're talking about, you know, the Dalai Lama, maybe, even Mother Teresa. There's some examples we can think of that are truly in that space of light. And however, when you're talking about enlightenment, like finding enlightenment, we don't really find it. It's more about us embodying
Hmm.
that light in us and also nurturing that light. Because when we do, that's when we are able to actually be more in control. When you look at your life, when you look at, people are looking at their lives, and if the listeners are looking and contemplating on, how they can create or manifest or, whatever word you want to call it, to have the thing that you want, being in that and embodying whatever that energy is, whatever that feeling is, because that's really the key. I didn't know this growing up. I didn't know that if I focus my energy on good things or positive things in the light, that good things would come back to me. So I became that person where I was always, talk about fears, because I was modeling it from my family. My family is so fearful, so cynical, pessimistic. I mean, all of it, you name it. And that was me, and that's why I struggled so much in my 20s, and bad things would happen. I just attracted bad things, car
Yeah.
accidents, bad jobs, whatever. And so when I started beginning to learn more about personal growth and self-development, and through the support of my coaches and mentors and helping me to put myself in a better place mentally and
Hmm.
emotionally, and then really understanding, when you get to that point, you realize how much power there is in that, because we are our own sovereignty. We can mold and shape our reality based on how we think and how we view things. And so to me, I just eat this up every day. It's so fascinating. So when you're talking about the dark energy and the light energy, and they're always around us, the best advice I can give is to not feed into it. Don't go down that downward spiral of continuing to, what Tony Robbins calls it, stacking, when you take multiple things and you stack them on top of one another.
Hmm.
And when you do that, whether either positive or negative, the outcomes that you get are going to be a reflection of that.
The awakening, as I call it, comes to make us aware that we can unplug from the dark way of thinking and stuff like that, because most of us,
Absolutely.
we're used to it. And because we've been trained and programmed that way, we don't know that there is a choice until the journey, that awakening happens. And you're like, wait a minute, I can decide differently.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
once we are aware of that, we become the observer in our life, in our awakening. And when you become the observer, that's when you begin to implement the tools, which will then allow you the opportunity to begin your journey, if you will, to now not allow your mind to 100% focus on the darkness all the time. You have to learn and rewire one's mind to become
100%.
a new designer, a new chooser. This is where you become power, when you begin to say to that thought. My tool that I brought into my life, when I was beginning my journey, was meditation. And I remember I couldn't sit there for 2 seconds, and I got to a point where now I could meditate for days if I choose. But I remember when those thoughts would come, and they will come 100 million a minute, they'll come. And I would say, not now. I do not give you permission at this time. This time is mine, and I choose to do this. And when I started to implement that, because I knew what I was doing, I was reprogramming my that thought
Mm.
field. And when I became more proficient in it, I can pick a thought, because that's the thought that I want to manifest a result. And
That's great.
so that's what we do when the journey happens to us. So here's this girl, because I know once you begin to study it, you have to implement it. And implementing it is not going to be, I got it one day through class and boom, I'm ready. It is
No.
a process, because we have been programmed for X amount of years, and it's not a overnight thing. It takes years until we die that we will be able to perfect this, if you will. And so
Mhm.
as you're implementing those things in your life, Mina, talk to me as to, number one, what tools did you bring into your space, because you're becoming aware of them in your class? What tools did you begin to implement? I saw that you mentioned that you started bringing your tribe together, those coaches and so forth. What tools did you bring into your life? And what changes did you begin to notice in your life?
Yeah. So some of the tools are mindfulness and meditation, like you. I've been practicing meditation for, I don't know, 15 years now. And what accelerated it for me actually was the Vipassana, the 10-day silent meditation. I highly
Excellent.
recommend people to check that out. Yeah,
Same
really
here.
great, really
Yeah.
great. And in that process, I also, throughout, the coaching that I've had over the years and the mentors, also read a lot of books. So I find really great, insights and tools there and be able to practice it. But really, it's about being proactive,
Hmm.
learning to um, understand that we have these automatic ways of being. And when we do things, a lot of the times it's on the subconscious level because
Yeah.
it's been programmed in us for so many years. We don't even realize when it's happening. So we may find ourselves in this habit or cycle. And next thing we know, we don't even know how it happened. That's because it's under the subconscious. It's just like tying your shoes. When
Yeah.
you were first learning to tie your shoes, what happens is you're really focused and you're really aware and present so that you can turn the loops in together in order to be able to tie your shoelace, right? And then over time, with practice, you do it without even thinking. Well, that's no different with our thoughts and our beliefs and how we live our day to day. And so what you want to do is break that in where you take the subconscious and bring it to the conscious level.
Hmm.
And one of the ways that I like to do that is through awareness techniques and just taking the time to notice when it happens, when you're doing that thing like eating that piece of cake when you know you got to lose 10 pounds, when you are not stepping out of your comfort zone to start a conversation with somebody new. All of these things, these fears that we have as well. You want to be aware of it. So
Yeah.
awareness is number one. And I like to call it the energy, which is N for notice. R, the second part of this after you notice, R is to release that. So,
Mhm.
meaning if you're thinking of a fear of like, I'm not going to get this job, notice this thought and let it go. Because what is it going to do for you? How is this going to support you to get a job that you're wanting? So, you ask yourself that question, automatically, you know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And you know it's not serving you. So, let go of that thought. And like, I like your technique as well as saying, not right now.
Yeah.
That's really great. And find a spin wherever it is, whatever way you want to do this, is to just let go of this thought. And then you generate a new thought to replace it with. You always
Mhm.
want to have something to replace that thought with. So you can't just leave it blank. You can't just try to let go of
Yeah.
a thought and not have anything good to replace it with. So think of a statement, a new way of being, I like to call it, of how you want to be, how you want to show up. So the way you are being dictates what you do. So everything that you are embodying is how you're going to move in life, how you're going to do things. And so your actions are going to model that. And whatever example that you can think of or way of being that you can think of that would represent the good outcome that you're wanting, think of what that is. So it could be something like, I am powerful. I can do
Yeah.
this. I've got this. I know how to do this. I'm not afraid. All of these things, these ways of being can help you to be that driving force to then take action from that place. And I like to always think of, other things like, for example, tools. Well, something very, very simple that's right under our noses is just taking care of our bodies,
Mhm.
taking care of ourselves in the form of self-care. Because when we don't have enough sleep and we're not eating healthy, those negative thoughts can creep in and we start becoming depressed. And we don't feel like we're in the mood to take on the world. And so, our bodies are so precious. And we have this one body that is taking and carrying us through life. And another piece of it is our health. So our body, mind, and spirit are all interrelated. They're all connected, right?
Mhm.
I'm sure you understand this. And so the tools are, being aware and taking care of our bodies, taking care of ourselves so that we can be at our optimum performance. Because when we get enough sleep, when we go exercise, we get good food in our bodies, we're happy,
Yeah.
we feel good. And from that happy place, we can really conquer a lot of things. We can achieve and accomplish a lot of great things.
Yeah. We
So
have
those are
to.
some of my tools.
Yeah. We have to recondition the mind and recondition. We can start with the body. The body is it's something we can look at. We can see the results. But I'm telling you, it's here. It connects, and
Yes,
lots of our trauma will manifest in the body first. It'll show up in diseases.
absolutely.
Unforgiveness, I've seen it many times in this form, shows up in the body, arthritis. And
Mm,
I don't know the correlation with that, why the hand and arthritis within the body. Most people that I've seen and had contact with when arthritis was there, it was unforgiveness. And
mm,
I've seen people forgive and the arthritis will go. So many of our diseases, that trauma that we hold, that emotional trauma, when expressed, those diseases that manifest in our body will go as well. And
absolutely.
I've seen that with my eyes, guys. I've seen cancer. I've seen all these things
Hmm.
heal. And we know that data exists because in science and in the medical, they call it the placebo effect. And that exists there. Mina was talking about, your habits. When it's in your subconscious being, when it's there, it's lodged, it becomes your habit. It's something that you do automatically. And so what is your assignment is to reprogram yourself to have a different, we call it condition response. What is condition response? You're driving the car in, the cop lights is fine. You're obeying the law, everything. But all of a sudden you're hitting the brakes, you're slowing down. Why? Because you have been programmed to have a conditioned response to that light and all these different things.
That's
And
true.
so it's the same within the realm of the spirit and the personal development. When you have certain things come in, you have to learn how to program your mind. Martial arts, when we study that, we had to condition the mind so that when someone does something, our body automatically respond that way. Condition respond within this realm
Mhm.
of personal development. Get busy. This is not for lazy people, man. So here you are. You're working, you're learning about all of these things. You're studying the body, you're seeing the results, Mina. And you said that when you went to this lady and this lady offered you, I love how the synchronicity, everything is being planned. We are not just walking around on this planet just by chance. 2008, when that crash came, it affected everyone because I was in there. I remember that, crash in the United States with building and all that stuff, the mortgage and everyone losing everything. When you began to look at self, and you mentioned earlier that marriage, your husband carrying the load and you can't find work and so forth, you took the chance, you took the chance and you hired this lady.
Yes.
And this lady comes into your life and she begins to redirect you.
Yes.
When she began to do that to you and you began to really investigate the purpose behind one working, and you
Mhm.
began to notice, wait a minute now, internally, because you're checking. When she mentioned coaching and life coaching, what happened to you? I want people to, those of you guys that are listening to us, listen to this piece right here because something happens internally that makes us aware of where to go. Mina, what happened to you inside when she said it?
So what happened to me was when we sat down for our first session, I literally cried because it was what I had been looking for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
The and that was the tools to help me to better my life. Was unable to, I didn't know. I didn't know anything about personal development before then. And I didn't know that there's this whole new world of actual tools that can support a person to be able to move past their obstacles. And so I felt when I was in that session, I cried because I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is what I need."
Yeah.
And part of it also was that I was really hungry for it. By that time, I had enough. I had enough. I was what did they say? I was sick and tired. I was sick and tired of the way my life was going at that point. And I think that when a person gets to that point where they have had enough of all the stress and the worry and the fears and all the things not going right in their lives is when they are ready to receive something new. And
I
so
believe so.
that's where I was. I was ready for trying something new. I was very open to it. And my coach was not an easy one either. She held me in a very loving space, but she was also very tough and she
Hmm.
wouldn't let me get away with anything.
That's good. That's a
And
good coach.
very good, very good. And so for me, everything that she challenged me with and she was offering to me, I would do it. I was willing to do whatever it took, trying everything and anything different other than what I had been doing. Speaking of habits, ways to change those habits is
Mhm.
simply to just do something different other
Yeah,
than what you've been doing so far. You have nothing to lose to try something different because what you've been trying so far hasn't been working, right? So you've got nothing to lose by doing something different, behaving differently, talking differently, saying something differently, even changing your habits and your routine. Instead of even going like from you have this people are creatures of habit. You go down one specific road to go to school or go to work. Well, what if you were to just even break that habit, to pick something small to do differently, go down a different road, pick a day and just, say, today I'm going to go down a different path because that's how you get yourself used to and comfortable to doing different things and stretching yourself out of your comfort zone so that you can see what else is possible. What if you go down a different road and you see something or you run into a person, you find a new store to go to or whatever that you see. It's like, if I didn't go down this road, I wouldn't have known. And it's the same with life. If I didn't go down that path, a different path of how to show up in my relationships, for example, I wouldn't know how else my relationship would form differently. So
yeah,
that's really the key. How we evolve and how we change is by doing something different. It's simple, But, a lot of people have fears. So let me address that too, because there's going to be people saying, well, I don't feel comfortable. Yes. And in your comfort zone is where everything is predictable and it's not going to change. It's going to all be the same inside your comfort zone.
They're not ready
Outside of
yet,
your comfort
Mina.
zone,
They're
yeah,
not ready yet because
well,
if you're ready, that excuse is not there
that's
because
right.
you've exhausted that excuse so many times and you're not ready
Mhm.
that you still have that because what Mina's talking about is when you've done all that. I've said that a million times and I am
Yeah,
done with all of that excuse.
yeah,
That's the space you need to be. And when you get
yeah,
there is no more excuse. You
that's right.
will try anything anyone says to you at any time and every time. And that is the key, guys. I grew up in the church, Mina, and every time I read all these Bible stories about all these people that got what they wanted, if you will, they all came to that same space. There was this woman with the issue of blood. She was rich. She kept spending money. She believed in the healthcare system of the time. And she kept going to all these doctors and spending her money. And it tells us in this story that she got broke from spending all her money and she was dying anyway. And so she was at that space where you were at. It says that she was dying, she was broke, and then she got to this space where she had done anything and everything in her power. And that means all the excuses, all of it. And she said within herself, and someone said that this guy Jesus is over there healing people. She said within herself, if I could touch the hem of his garment, I know I'm going to get what I want. Something totally different. She believed in the healthcare system
Mhm.
at the time. She was going to the doctor. We will call this guy a shaman maybe today or whatever,
Mhm.
some evangelist. But she heard that this guy has something different. And she was desperate enough. She said, I don't care. I just need to
Mhm.
touch his hem of his garment. I don't need to talk to him. I don't want to say hi. I don't want to say hello. I don't want to touch nothing. And when she crawled, it says she went against the grain and she touched the hem of his garment. He turned around and says, who touched me? And now his disciple says, what's wrong with you? Tons of people are touching you. He says, no, who touched me? And
Yeah.
so that's how we touch the divine is when
Yeah.
we get to a place where all the excuses mean nothing anymore. And so that's the key that you guys need to hear what Mina was saying. She was there. And until you get there, if you come
Mhm.
up with an excuse, you're not ready. You're fooling yourself. And we
Absolutely.
need to be honest with each other. I mean, I think there's a degree of honesty that we have to let the listener hear that you have to become desperate in the sense where you have exhausted everything that you can ever do in your life in that particular situation and come to a place where if someone says, go walk in the water over there and you're going to get it, you're going to get up and walk in the water. Until we
Mhm.
are able to get there, we're not ready.
Yeah, 100%. Readiness is the key for
Yeah,
sure.
we have to be
Because,
because it changes everything.
yeah. So taking a look at whatever the fears that a person may have, and behind that is simply they're not ready yet.
Yeah. It's the excuses. I'm telling you guys, this is it right there. That's the secret in everything. If you read any story, I've read the Vedas, I've read the I Ching, I've read all these stories
Mm.
and books that people, when they got to that place right there and they gave up all the excuses, that's when they got their victory because they were ready at that point. And when you get there, you will know everything else is just bullshit. I
One-
just hate to say it that way. You know,
No, I agree with you. I mean, it's really about just taking a look at, how far, how much longer do we want to suffer?
yeah,
And maybe some people, I know I've been there, I
I've been
suffered
there.
for a very long time until I was ready.
Yeah, I've been there. I know. I'm telling them. You and I are telling them the
Yeah.
secret sauce, if you will,
Yeah.
is when you come to the end of all your excuses.
Yeah.
That's when you're ready. And please hurry up and get there because we know what's beyond that. So here you are. You came to the end, if you will. You were tired and you just made the changes and you began to see the results. What, Mina, did you notice? How did you begin to deal with those dark thoughts that you had given permission to become monsters, if you will? Your
Mhm.
depression, your anxiety, all the fearfulness that was there. How did you overcome them? They're still there, but how did you learn to manage them where they do not have control over you like it did once before.
Yeah. Managing is a good word because it is a daily practice.
Yeah.
It is a daily practice. And again, my routine, I've made it a priority to do the things such as self-care and taking care of my well-being so that I don't go down the slippery slope. Because, yeah, there are going to be negative thoughts coming. So I manage them by getting enough sleep, taking care of my body, and also daily journals, gratitude lists, prayers. I call on my guardian angels even to help me. If I find myself in a place where I'm sabotaging something, I call on my guardian angels and I ask also God, like, please help me to be in a better place around this. And
Yeah.
so, every day I have to be doing something. So I've gotten good at this because I've been doing it for so many years. You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't easy in the beginning. Of
Conditional
course, it was
response.
right. The human
Yeah.
conditioning and the
Hmm.
automatic ways of being kept
Yeah.
pulling me back to that old way. And old way of doing things was more suffering
Hmm.
and more
Yeah.
pain. And so I had to be very committed to stick with doing something, a daily practice every day. And now, of course, there were days where I would just be off the bandwagon and I just, would be completely off course, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my coaches taught me to not stay in there for too long. When you notice it, when you're there, get yourself out of there as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Do
Best
whatever it
advice.
takes. Do what you need to do to get yourself out of that
Yeah.
funk and get yourself go for a walk. Do something. Break this the monotony or whatever it is. And then, just keep doing it. And
Hmm.
and the way to change habits is by keeping a consistent practice in the form of something daily. Pick one habit, one thing. You don't have to bombard yourself with multiple things and say, I want to change this, and this, and then go and try to do it all at the same time. That's not how it works. It doesn't stick. Things don't really change when you keep wanting to add more things to your plate. So just pick one area, just one thing, one simple thing. What if it's just like drinking enough water a day, 8 glasses a day or whatever they say, or you want to go take a walk for a half hour, you know, pick one thing and go do it every day and make a commitment and a promise to yourself. And I find that what really helps the most is the why behind it.
Hmm.
So if a person knows why they want this, it can be a great motivator. It can be really helpful to help them to see, well, I want to feel good in my body. I want to I want to be able to travel more. I want to have more time with my family. Whatever that why is, hang on to it. Really keep that in the forefront of your mind and really remember why you're doing this in the first place, because that's how you can change habits, is by
Become a
reminding
disciple.
yourself of that.
Become a disciple, whatever it is. Discipleship means discipline.
Yes.
Become a disciple in
Yeah.
your life. And I always tell people that the disciples change the world. My body and my mind, that's my world. And I must become my disciple to change my world. And whatever, as Mina says, pick whatever it is and begin to become a disciple, discipline oneself with it, and watch the results that will manifest in your life. Now, here you are. I want you to talk to us. You've been doing this 17 years now. You
Yeah.
have been afforded the opportunity, as I mentioned, one of the most sacred things that we will ever get to see when we serve others. That transition, Mina, go back in your recollection, if you will, and pick a time, an incident, we call them client, an individual that came to you, and through your conversation with them, you're able to move their perception that they had about themselves to move that needle into a new world where they change their perception. Invite us to one of those precious moments. I know what it does to you, but tell us a little about what it did to that individual when you had that, when you witnessed that and you were a part of it.
Yeah. So one that comes to my mind was this hardworking mother. She, struggled with a huge sense of guilt where she was always there for her children and for her family. But when it came to doing something for herself, she would stop herself from enjoying something or taking a break or not having to do the dishes one night or whatever it is. And there was a lot of guilt coming from her inside internally. And even though on the surface, on the outside surface, she was functioning fine and, things appeared good in her life, deep down inside, it was really eating her up and she was unhappy. And so she came to me with wanting to change that. And as we worked through and how those conversations of where this guilt came from, and then identifying for her what that was, what it meant behind that feeling of guilt, and for her to realize that there was this internal story that was just really her story, and it wasn't a fact. It wasn't real. And for her to recognize that and then that moment where it was like, aha, the light bulb came on. It's like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And then from that point on, realizing that it's okay and it's safe for her to take a break.
Mm.
She takes care of her children and it's okay to, they're grown, they're not young and they can
Hmm.
take care of their own. And why is it that she is still feeling like she has to always be there for them?
Yeah.
And when is it going to be her turn to finally be able to rest and have her needs met? And so
Yeah.
for her, it was this huge shift and change of going from this disproportionate amount of guilt to then loving herself, because that's really
Yeah.
where it came from, is for her to not feeling loved enough to want to deserve to be, you know, putting more attention on herself and what she wanted. So
Wow.
that was one that was really cool to watch. I just
Yeah.
loved watching that transition in her.
That is a beautiful story and example. It is March 3rd. You have an opportunity. You're on a stage. I mean, you have a mic. That mic is plugged into every mankind and every individual on this planet. What would you say?
Let go of the Let go of the BS. Let go of all the things that you've been told that you think is how to live and how to be, and just follow your heart and don't hold back. Don't be afraid of showing your true light and all the facets and all the gifts that you have.
Love it. That, guys, I'm going to leave it right there. That is beautiful advice. I want to personally thank Mina for coming and again, spending her quality time with us and opening up to us her life, her
Mm,
journey, who she is.
thank
And
you.
she shared such powerful story. She afforded us the opportunity to gain some insight, some wisdom and knowledge and so forth that would free us. And all of you guys that are listening to us, you have been just paying deep attention to what she's saying and our conversation and the questions. And you want to know more. We're going to provide all of her links. Get into her coaching classes. She mentioned she made a decision that changed her life and her trajectory forever. And it afforded her the opportunity to locate her assignment, her purpose to make her purposeful on this planet. We're going to provide all of that because I want you to get into her space, become a disciple, and she will bring and walk with you, as she mentioned, this lady had she helped walk you through so that you can see the greatness that is in you. Mina, thank you so much for
Mm.
coming to Threads of
And thank
Enlightenment.
you. It's truly been a pleasure. Thank you for your valuable time as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.